Welcome to Washed by the Word. I'm Pastor Kon, and I wanted to personally welcome you to our Sunday morning service as we go verse by verse through God's Word. It's our desire here by Washed by the Word that the Spirit of God will speak to you intimately as we go verse by verse through His Word. So welcome again to our Sunday morning service, and I look forward to hearing from all of you, sharing with us what God has shown you today as you get washed by the Word. All right, here we go. We are going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 13. Those of you that have been coming for a while, you remember we've been going through the life of David now. We started in 1 Samuel chapter 1. We go through a chapter or so a week. Sometimes we slow down a little bit for some very specific places. We're going to pick the pace back up again. We started off looking at Samuel and how he was conceived, his childhood, growing up in the home of Eli the priest. We saw his role in ministry in the nation of Israel. We then saw the children of Israel asking for a king. They asked for a king that would be like, so they could be like all the nations around them and ahead of God's timing, but that God gave them what they requested. They got a king. His name was Saul. We looked at Saul, King Saul, and starting off with such potential and really messing up. Then we saw David come on the scene, and we saw how David was a man after God's own heart, God's own choosing. We saw David was far from perfect. In fact, David messed up over and over and over. He was in sin a lot. We see it throughout 1 Samuel. We saw that he looted, he killed, he robbed, he lied, and God put him on the throne and said, "This is a man after my own heart." We saw that God looks at the heart, not at the external. As we got into 2 Samuel, we saw David doing extremely well. And before we get going into our text, I do want us to slow down for a second, taking a look, if you would just quickly turn to 2 Samuel 3. You can stay in 13 there, but just 2 Samuel 3, because this will come into play today. We might also cover it right now as we go. It says in chapter 3 of 2 Samuel in verse 2, it says here, sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn, this would have been the crown prince. This would have been the one who would be next on the throne if we were looking at it from a human perspective. The firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam, the Jezreelitist. The second Chileab in 1 Chronicles chapter 3, it tells us there that he also went by the name of Daniel. Not the Daniel we know of, that's just his name. And it appears that he died at an early age. But he was born through Abigail, the widow of Nabal, the Carmelite. We studied about that whole situation, remember. The third son born to David when he was down there in Hebron was Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. So we see that here David takes a wife who is not a Jew, not a Hebrew. When we look at where this king was, old Talmai, we see that he was north of Ishbosheth. Remember where David and Ishbosheth were kind of vying for the leadership. David was in Hebron, Ishbosheth was up further north. Well, Talmai is a king on the other side of Ishbosheth. And David marries his daughter, forming this alliance. So we see a political marriage here, but we see this third son of David, Absalom. Now, Chileab has died, so we have the first son, the crown prince, Amnon. The next in line, Absalom. Keep that in mind as we go forward. So now, as we are looking at the life of David, we see him become king, and he's doing extremely well. And then we saw in chapter 11, a time of year when kings went out to war, that David sent the armies over to fight the Ammonites, and he stayed home. And while he stayed home, he saw Bathsheba. As he walked on the roof that night, he saw this beautiful woman, and he lusted after her. He sent for her, he inquired of her first, and they said, "Who is this?" And he says, "Isn't that Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" And he sent for her, Uriah the Hittite, one of his mighty men, out fighting the battle. And you know the story. He brings Bathsheba to him, and she becomes pregnant. She tells David, I'm with child. So he does what he thought would be the quick fix, is he sends for her husband Uriah to come home from the battle. How's it going, Uriah? How's the battle going? Okay, we'll see you in the morning. Go home, be with your wife, and we'll see you in the morning. And he's gotten by. The next morning it's told him Uriah didn't go home. He stayed and slept outside your door. Uriah, why didn't you go home with your wife? He says, how could I? With all the guys fighting, risking their lives, fighting the battle for Israel, how could I go home and be with my wife? You think David felt a little bit guilty, a little bit ashamed right there? So we saw what David did next. David then got him drunk. Said, now go home and be with your wife. And the next morning he didn't go. And we saw that Uriah, not a Hebrew, but a Hittite. We saw after the first night he had greater character than the king of Israel. And after the second night we saw that a drunk Hittite had more character than the king of Israel. So David puts a hit out on Uriah and sends Uriah with the hit in a sealed message, gives it to Joab the general, which says, put Uriah in the heat of the battle, withdraw from him, and make sure he's dead. And that's what happens. Bathsheba hears of the death of her husband. She mourns. As soon as the period of mourning, 7 days is over, David brings Bathsheba in with him, marries her, and David has pulled off the perfect crime. So it seems. But at the end of chapter 11, remember the last sentence, but the thing which David did displeased the Lord. The Lord sends Nathan, a friend of David's. Nathan gives him the parable about the wealthy man with all the sheep and the little neighbor next to the wealthy man with his one little pet lamb that slept with the kids and ate with the kids. It's a cute little pet. And the wealthy man had some company coming by, and instead of grabbing one of his sheep, which would affect his bottom line, he goes to this poor family living next to him, takes their one little pet. So those of you that have pets, think of your little pet. And imagine a wealthy neighbor taking your pet and saying, I'm eating him today. And it's told David, and David flies into a rage, remember. So well, if that's the case, he should die. And according to the law, he should give him 4 lambs back. So David says, the law says give 4 back, but he goes even further. He says, and he should die. As David saw in this story, which he thought was true, the very same thing he was guilty of, stealing from a neighbor that had but one. David had tons of wives. And Nathan, when David says that, Nathan says, David, you're the man. God has blessed you with everything you could imagine. Anything you want is yours. And yet you took from Uriah the one thing that he had, his wife. And you stole her from your neighbor. And David's like, oh, I have sinned against the Lord. And we talked about confession, how confession doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be emotional, but it has to be heartfelt. We looked at Saul's confession in 1 Samuel 15, and Saul was a long confession, an emotional confession, but it was not heartfelt. He continued on, chasing after David and all. But here was a true confession by David. I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan, David, you're not going to die. He should have died. There was no remedy in the Old Testament law, and David has already placed himself under the law by going into the law with this illustration, this parable that Nathan had given. He should die now. He says, you're not going to die, David, but the sword will not depart from your home. And we're going to see that which David did is going to show up in his children's lives in a much greater extent, to a much greater extent. There's an adage that says, that which the parents do in moderation, the children do in excess. And we're going to see that laid out here before us. As we get into chapter 13 now, We ended last week a little bit short of end of chapter 12, so we will go back and take a quick look at verse 26 of chapter 12. And Lord willing, today we're going to cover chapter 12, verse 26, all the way through the end of chapter 13. So we're going to cover a chapter and about 6 verses or so. It says in chapter 12, verse 26, we just have seen that Solomon has been born. And now the storyline switches back to this battle against the Ammonites there at their capital city, their fortress city, Rabbah. Now, it could be that it's actually taking place there. It's going back to the beginning of chapter 11. Or it could be this is the next year and they're back in battle, and it depends. It makes no difference. It really makes no difference. What we do know is Joab is fighting over there at Rabbah. Now, Joab fought against Rabbah of the people of Ammon, and he took that royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David and said, I have fought against Rabbah, and I have taken the city's water supply. Now, therefore, gather the rest of the people together and encamp against the city and take it, lest I take the city and it be called after my name. He says, David, get over here, man. It's time. We've got the victory. You need to come and claim the spoils. So David gathered all the people together. He went to Rabbah, fought against it, and took it. And as we've seen over and over and over again with David, whenever he would have a victory, he would take the spoil of the victory and present it at the treasury of the Lord. He would give it to the Lord and to the Lord's work and into the kingdom. That was David. He was walking with the Lord. He was having a tremendous success. Now he has fallen. And yes, he's been restored, but take a look what happens. Then he took the king's crown from his head. So David takes this king of Ammon's crown. Its weight was a talent of gold. That means absolutely nothing to me. A talent of gold, I think of America's Got Talent. I don't think of a talent of gold. What is a talent of gold? Anybody have any idea how much a talent weighs? It's a lot. It's a lot. If you've ever gone to the gym, they have those dumbbells. I mean the weights, guys, the weights. But they've got these, and they've got them, and you move on down, you get a dumbbell. Some get kind of heavy. Some are like 20 pounds. Some are 30 pounds. Some are 40 pounds. Some are 50 pounds. Some are 60 pounds. A talent is more than 60 pounds. Some are 70 pounds. A talent is more than 70 pounds. Think about that. A talent is equivalent to 75 pounds today. So take that dumbbell and put it on your head. That's a heavy crown. He put it on his head. I guarantee he did not wear it a long time. But I find it interesting he put it on his head. Because in the past, David presented it to the Lord. It's an amazing thing when we become self-centered, is it not? And he puts it on his head. Its weight was a talent of gold with precious stones. It was set on David's head. Also, he brought out the spoil of the city in great abundance. And he brought out the people who were in the city, and he put them to work with saws and iron picks and iron axes and made them cross over to the brickworks. Going to the brickworks implies execution. So he did to all the cities of the people of Ammon. David now not walking with the Lord like he once did. He takes the spoils of war and he puts it on his head. Doesn't fit well. Remember the mercy David kept showing? He said, I just want to show mercy to somebody. Remember, that was David. That was the hallmark of David. I just want to be good. I want to give grace. I want to give mercy to somebody. Now he's putting him into hard labor, implying that there could even been public execution. This is not the same David. Because of that, there are those who believe this Rabbah is captured, took place before Nathan confronted David. In fact, there are some, as we look at the people that were born to David and Bathsheba, Solomon is the fourth one born to them. There are 3 other ones born to them. We go into Chronicles and look. There are those who believe that Nathan didn't confront David until about 9 years after their sin. I'm away from the pulpit. I'm just saying there's those who believe that. If that's the case, this Rabbah took place when David's sin was still undercover. And that explains what he's doing. So this parenthetical chapters 11 and 12, they just kind of tell the story of David and Bathsheba and Nathan's confrontation and the birth of Solomon. But we know from Chronicles that there were 3 other boys already born to David and Bathsheba before Solomon was born. So it's just interesting things. So I'm just throwing that out there. Study it and see. Study and see. I spent way too much time this week tracking that down. And it just changes the way you look at this. It's like pretty cool. The Psalms come alive too in a whole new way. So I just want to encourage you to take a look. After this, Absalom. Now remember Absalom? We just looked at him earlier on over there in 2 Samuel chapter 3. Remember Absalom was the third son of David? So David's got these 7 sons that were born to him in Hebron. He's got 9 more born to him in Jerusalem. So he's got 16 kids, sons being born. Absalom is number 3, but number 2, Daniel, Chileab, has died. So we have Amnon, the crown prince. You can only imagine the crown prince. I mean, we see that as we look at England. We see the crown prince. I forgot his name already. That's so embarrassing. But I just know he's the crown prince of the 2 boys. One's getting married to an American actress, right? And the older brother, what's that guy's name? William, thank you. William. We got William. He's in line. Of course, his dad. And then it's going to be William. And then you got Prince Harry marrying Meghan. Okay. I don't know. But anyway, there it is. So you've got that same order thing going on. You got that same order thing going on. So we have Amnon, he'd be the William. Absalom, now that his number 2 brother has died, would be like Harry, if you will, as far as order goes. So once dad dies, Amnon's the king. And Absalom, you just came up a little bit short. So now we go after this, Absalom. We know Abba. Ab means father. Salam, shalom, peace. Absalom, the peace of the father. This is the father's peace. This is Absalom. He was the son of David. He had a lovely sister. Later on, we're going to see that Absalom was a stud. He was a good-looking dude. He was the guy that would be on the cover of whatever it is that good-looking dudes are on, you know. That was Absalom. Absalom had it going on, and now he has a sister who's also extremely hot, and that's going to be an issue. So now we've got this brother and sister, full brother and sister. Absalom, father's peace, the son of David, had a lovely sister. Her name was Tamar. It means palm tree. A palm tree in the Middle East means a whole lot more than it does here in our country. When I think palm tree here, I think of like Florida, California, Hawaii, palm tree, shade, nice. You go to Israel, palm trees, they'll have oases, an oasis of palm trees. How many have seen those? You know what I'm talking about. There's a whole oasis just of palm trees lined up perfectly in a row, bam, bam, bam. As far as you can see, palm trees. And underneath them, there are dates all over the place. And the palm tree was when the children of Israel went into Israel, and when the spies went in, remember, we talked about that a couple studies ago in Numbers chapter 14 there, and Moses sends the spies in to check out the land. They come back and say, you know, God said it was a land flowing with milk and honey. It truly is a land flowing with milk and honey. In our culture, I hear milk, I think cows. I hear honey, I think bees. In Israel, Middle East, it doesn't work that way. Milk is goat milk. They hear milk, they hear goats. And they hear honey, they don't think bees. They think dates. Date honey, palm trees. It speaks of fruitfulness. So they called her a palm tree, meaning she is fruitful. She's the king's daughter, and she's fruitful. She is a catch. And on top of that, she is beautiful. So that's what we're coming into in chapter 13. After this, Absalom, the son of David, had a lovely sister. Her name was Tamar, palm tree, fruitfulness. And Amnon, wait a minute, that's the crown prince now. That's Amnon, and that's the firstborn. So we got the firstborn, secondborn has died, thirdborn Absalom, and Absalom has a sister. So that mom has given a boy and a girl to David. That was the daughter, remember, of the king, Talmai, the king, up by the Sea of Galilee up there. A non-Jew. And Amnon, the crown prince, the son of David, loved her. Now, doesn't that just sound like, aw, he loved her. Aw. You can just say, I just love you. Can't you just hear it? Septuagint. We've heard of the Septuagint? The Greek translation of the Hebrew Old Testament. Remember the Septuagint? In the Septuagint, it jumps out at us. Our English language, we get ripped off so badly in English. So bad. I love pizza. I love pizza. Remember, Pee Wee Herman used to make a joke out of that. Well, if you love it so much, why don't you marry it? He was making a joke out of the word love. Because in the English language, we have one word for love. Love. Context tells us what kind of love we're talking about. In Greek, they have 4 words for love. And it's very specific. They tell you exactly what kind of love they're talking about by the word that they use. They have storge love. Storge. It's familial love, the way a family member loves another family member. Storge love. They have phileo love, the way 2 people love each other like brothers. In fact, our city, Philadelphia, comes from that, the city of brotherly love. Philadelphia, from phileo in the Greek. We have agape love, God's love. It's a self-giving love. It's where it's not about me. It's God's love. It's a selfless love. Agape love, storge love, phileo love, and then we have eros love. Eros love is on the other end of the spectrum from agape love. Agape love is of me because I love you. Eros love is I want because of me. It's a selfish love. So we have a selfless love and a selfish love. Agape and eros. In the Septuagint, when they translated this into Greek, they went into the Hebrew word to see what the Hebrew word was, and then put the appropriate Greek word there. In English, we just say love, based on context. So, Amnon, the son of David, loved her. The Greek is eros. He loved her because she was hot. He loved her because he wanted her to satisfy his selfish desires. That was the Amnon love right here. So he loved her. Amnon was so distressed over his sister Tamar that he became sick. Not love sick, lust sick. In David's palace, they would have had all the princes on one side of the palace and all the daughters on the other side of the palace. Amnon had no access to Tamar, but he looked at her and he says, I want her. He became sick, for she was a virgin. In other words, she was available, but not to him. She was of marrying status, but not to him. And it was improper for Amnon to do anything to her. But Amnon had a friend. His name was Jonadab. Jonadab means to give freely. And we're going to see that Jonadab is more than happy to give his opinion freely, to give his advice freely. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother. David's nephew. This would have been Amnon's cousin. Now, Jonadab was a very crafty man. One translation I came across said very wily. And he said to him, why are you, the king's son, becoming thinner day after day? Tell me. And Amnon said, I eros Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. I want her. Bottom line. So Jonadab said to him, well, lie down on your bed, pretend to be sick. When your dad comes to see you, say, please let my sister Tamar come and give me food and prepare the food in my sight that I may see it and eat from her hand. That's all he had to say. They both knew exactly where that would put Amnon. They both had the same wicked intent. Just get her into your bedroom, because that's what Amnon's looking for. How do I get her into bed? Do you realize that that still goes on today? Lust, selfish lust, is all about, what can I do to get her to bed? That's the point. This isn't love, this is lust. And Jonadab is right there. So as we look at David's two sins, his first sin, remember, was adultery. I'd like us to turn in our Bibles to Matthew chapter 5, because as Jesus is giving what is known as the Sermon on the Mount, he addresses both of David's sins. The first sin, adultery, the fruit of lust. He says in verse 27 of Matthew 5, "You have heard it said to those of old, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart." So we see David's sin, adultery, coming from when he looked at Bathsheba. Now we're going to see, going forward in just a little bit, how David's sin is played out in the lives of his sons on steroids. The second sin that David committed that we saw in chapter 11 was murder, when he put the hit out secretively on Uriah. If we take a look at chapter 5, verse 21, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not murder.' And whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment." Anger without a cause. Spend a little bit of time just looking at anger and its relationship to hatred, and to find out that they're from the same source word in the Hebrew. Looked up the definition in some of the dictionaries, English dictionaries, of anger and hatred, and saw that they are very closely related. That anger is the seed bed in which hatred grows. So we see adultery, the fruit of lust. We see murder, the fruit of anger, and eventually hatred, David's two sins. Now, as we get into chapter 13, we're not going to look at David's two sins. We're going to look at David's two sons. And we're going to see that the sins of the father have truly been passed on to his boys. But we are going to see as well what David did. I hate to say in moderation, but he did it in moderation. He did it once. We're going to see Amnon and Absalom doing it openly, unashamedly, and even defending it. So let's take a look now. He's got a friend, his cousin, telling him what he needs to do to get Tamar alone with him in his bedroom. Then Amnon did it. He followed the counsel of Jonadab. Psalm 1 says, if you want to be happy, blessed, David writes it. He says, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. We're going to see Amnon is going to walk in the counsel of the ungodly. And as a result, he is going to play the fool. He is going to lose the position of a crown prince. And it will cost him his life. Verse 6, then Amnon lay down, pretended to be ill, and when the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, please let Tamar, my sister, come and make a couple of cakes for me in my sight, that I may eat from her hand. Yep, that's exactly what Jonadab told him. Isn't it interesting how we are when it comes to counsel and advice? Have you noticed that? People give you good counsel if they give what you want to hear. That's just what it is. It's either good counsel or godly counsel, usually. Well, that's not good counsel. Why? It's too godly. Oh, okay. Got it. But it's amazing how smart counselors are if they tell you what you want to hear. And how stupid they are if they don't tell you what you want to hear. Have you noticed that? And have you also found if you ask enough people their advice, eventually you'll find someone smart enough to tell you what you want to hear? And they're really smart, and that's where to go right there. Well, Amnon listens to Jonadab's counsel to a T. To a T. So David sent home to Tamar, saying, "Go now to your brother Amnon's house." Now here's Tamar. She's just there. She's a princess, mind you. She's got the princess's garb on. She's got the long robe. All of David's daughters would have had it on. The long robe of many colors. It's saying, "I am a virgin. I am available. Here I am. Talk to my dad. I'm here." So now David goes to her because Amnon, the crown prince, says, Tamar's a good cook. I need some food. Have Tamar come and bring some food for me. Make some food for me. David, okay. Go to your brother Amnon's house, prepare food for him. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house. Why? Because her dad told her to. You see, it's a father's responsibility to cover his daughter, to protect his daughter, to make certain that she's not put in harm's way. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down. She took flour, she kneaded it, she made cakes in his sight and baked the cakes, and she took the pan and placed them out before him. But he refused to eat. The crown prince, he kind of appears as used to having it his way or no way. I don't want to eat. Okay. Those of you that are raising children, you ever try to enter that battle? That's a horrible battle to enter, isn't it? I'm not going to eat it. Just eat a little bit. No, well, one bite. No. You ever getting that? There was a parenting program that I was watching being played out in front of a church I used to pastor. It was a big old church, and they had a lot of people doing it. And it was one of the best things I ever saw, and it worked. It worked. I thought, why didn't I know that when I was fighting those battles with my daughter? That was a great way to end that battle. I said, don't fight that battle. You can't win that battle. Here, eat this. No. I said, don't fight that battle. You don't want to eat that? No, that's fine. Take it up, put it in the refrigerator. When you're hungry, tell me. They go to bed that night. The next piece of food that goes in their mouth is that meal. They might go to bed hungry. They'll look up, I'm hungry. I got it right here for you. I don't want to eat that. That's fine. Let me know when you're ready to eat. I got it for you. It ends the battle. They eat it and they realize, that doesn't work. I don't want to fight that battle anymore. That's 3-day-old food. Now I'm really hungry. So it stops. But it's an amazing thing. Don't enter those battles. Well, here's Amnon. I'm not going to eat that. No, poor guy. And he says, get everybody out of here. Have everyone go out from me. So they all went out from him. So now he is alone in the house. She's alone in a house with a pervert. And Amnon said to Tamar, bring the food into the bedroom that I may eat from your hand. Well, it's Amnon. He's the crown prince. He's my brother. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, he got everybody out of the house. He's isolated us, and he wants me to go into his bedroom. That's okay. I'm just going to feed him breakfast in bed, And Tamar took the cakes which she had made and brought them to Amnon, her brother, in the bedroom. Now when she brought them to him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, come lie with me, my sister. And she answered him, no. And she says, my brother, no, my brother, do not force me. In the original language, the word force there is rape me. For no such thing should be done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful thing. The law made it very clear on incest. Not to happen. And where could I take my shame, she says. And as for you, you would look like one of the fools in Israel. You're the crown prince. Now therefore, please speak to the king. He'll not withhold me from you. That's called buying time right there. However, he would not heed her voice. And being stronger than she, he forced her and lay with her. Why did he do that? Because he, in quote, loved her. Because he lusted after her. Now we see what happens, and this is so typical. Then, notice the word then. After he raped her, after he got her, if you will, then Amnon hated her exceedingly. Love turned to hate just like that. Because it was a lust. It wasn't love. It was all about him. Now his guilt is overwhelming, and he hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he loved her. And Amnon said to her, get up, get out of here. Go. So she says, no, I'm not going. This evil of sending me away is worse than the other that you did to me. You've taken away my virginity. You have disqualified me from getting married. You have publicly humiliated me the rest of my life. And now you think I'm just going to leave? No. This is worse. But he would not listen to her. Then he called his servant who attended him and says, here, put this, and notice the word woman is in italics. Remember, whenever the word is in italics in our Bible, that means that word is not in the original text. It's put there so we can understand it. He literally says, here, put this out. This is the princess. This is a princess, and he treats her like trash. Do you realize that every woman on the planet is somebody's little princess? Everyone. Here, put her out. Get her away from me. Lock the door. No, she had on a robe of many colors, for the king's virgin daughters wore such apparel. And his servant put her out and bolted the door behind her. Then Tamar put ashes on her head, tore her robe of many colors because she no longer fits what that robe stands for. Laid her hand on her head and went away crying bitterly. And Absalom, her brother, said to her when he saw Tamar, he says, notice, has Amnon your brother been with you? That tells me that Absalom knew Amnon. She's crying, dust on her head, her robe is ripped. That's her way of saying, I have been raped. And he says, has Amnon been with you? But now hold your peace, my sister. He's your brother. Do not take this to heart. And we're going like, what are you saying, Absalom? But we will see what Absalom's saying. So Tamar remained desolate in her brother Absalom's home, no longer with the princesses of the king. She's put away in seclusion with Absalom. Later on in 1 Chronicles, again, you can tell I've been in 1 Chronicles this week, but in 1 Chronicles, it talks about David's family, and it talks about his 7 sons born to him in Hebron. It talks about the 9 sons born to him in Jerusalem. It talks about his concubines in his home, and then it says, and Tamar. So that tells us that Tamar never did get married. David was responsible for providing for Tamar all of her life. Amnon took and ruined Tamar's life for his couple of minutes of selfish pleasure. And her life's ruined. When King David heard of all these things, he was very angry. And you know what he does? Absolutely nothing. He's angry. That's what he does. Why do you suppose he didn't do anything about this lust and incestual relationship? What's that?
Self-guilt.
Guilt. You better know it. He goes, well, what can I say? I'm guilty of that. I believe that's one of Satan's strongest weapons that he uses in the Christian community today. He goes to our past and he says, how can you say that to your children? Look what you did when you were their age. Look what you just did. How can you say that? And the enemy has something in us. Remember, it was Jesus who said, Satan has nothing in me. Do you realize the enemy has nothing in you either if you confess and repent of your sin? You've heard said so many times, the next time Satan reminds you of your past, you remind him of his future. You've heard it over and over and again. Do not compromise with the world because of our past. Wrong is wrong and right is right. As we raise our children, we don't use the standards that we had, we use God's standards. We use God's standards. David, because of his self-guilt, well, Amnon, what am I going to say? He's the crown prince, and I wish he wouldn't have done that. That was crazy. Amnon, just stop that now. Behave yourself. That's the end of it. He's angry, and that's it. Absalom spoke to his brother Amnon, neither good nor bad. David's angry, and Absalom's giving Abner the silent treatment. For Absalom, check it out, hated Amnon because he had raped his sister Tamar. So he's got this quiet hatred going on, and we're going to see, as we saw in the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus talked about anger and hatred you've already murdered in your heart, we're going to see that the fruit of murder really does come from anger. Hatred shows itself out in murder here. And just as Nathan said, David, you're not going to die, but the sword will never depart from your home. Man, we're going to see some crazy stuff in David's family as a result of his sin. Forgiven, yes. Consequences, definitely. And it came to pass after 2 full years, 2 years, this hatred, this anger is just seething up in Absalom. Now remember, David had put on a silent hit on Uriah, remember. It came to pass after 2 full years that Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal Hazor, about 14 miles north of Jerusalem, near Ephraim. So Absalom invited all the king's sons. That's typical. They have a big sheep shearing party. It was a big party. Absalom came to the king and said, kindly note your servant has sheep shearers. Please let the king and the servants go with your servant. The king said to Absalom, no, my son, let us not all go now, lest we become a burden to you. Man, we got a big family here. I got 16 kids. With all of the security and all, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. No, Absalom. You go have a fun time. He urged him. He would not go, and he blessed him. Just have fun, Absalom. Absalom, well, if not, at least let the crown prince go. Maybe Amnon can go, right? The king said to him, why should he go with you? But Absalom urged him. So David said, well, Amnon, go ahead and go. In fact, all the boys, just go. Go have fun. Go ahead, have fun, boys. Now Absalom had commanded his servants, saying, watch now, when Amnon's heart is merry with wine. Remember David got Uriah drunk and then put a secret hit out on him the next day. Absalom, he puts out a hit, not so secret. He tells all of his guys. And when I say to you, strike Amnon, then kill him. Don't be afraid. Have I not commanded you to be courageous? Be valiant. So the servants of Absalom did to Amnon as Absalom had commanded. So what happens now? All of a sudden, Amnon's dead. Who's the new crown prince? Oh, yeah, I guess so, huh? So now Absalom's next in line. Going to bide some time, but he's taken out the competition. And he's avenged his sister. Oh, if only David would have been a man. Protected his daughter, or dealt with it when it was made known to him. So they killed Amnon. Then all the king's sons arose, and each got on his mule and fled. And it came to pass, while they were on the way, that news came to David, saying, Absalom has killed all the king's sons. Not one of them is left. Isn't that something, how bad news travels fast and usually it's exaggerated? Isn't that the way it is? It's just crazy. There it happens again. They're all dead. So the king arose, tore his garments, lay on the ground. All the servants stood by with their clothes torn. Then Jonadab, remember this guy? Jonadab, he's the one who freely gives out news right away. Now Jonadab comes by, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother. He answers, says, let not my lord suppose they've killed all the young men, the king's sons. For only Amnon is dead. It's just one. Just Amnon. For by the command of Absalom, this had been determined from the day that he raped his sister Tamar. Old Jonadab, he knew from day one. Ever since I told him what to do. Absalom's going to kill him. Just a matter of time. Calm down, David. The rest of the boys are here. Just Amnon's dead. Now, therefore, let not my lord the king take the thing to his heart, to think that all the king's sons are dead. Just Amnon. Wow. Then Absalom fled, and the young man who was keeping watch looked at his eyes, and he looked, And there many people were coming from the road on the hillside behind him. And Jonadab said to the king, "Look, the king's sons are coming, as your servant said, so it is." So it was, as soon as he had finished speaking, that the king's sons indeed came, and they lifted up their voice and they wept. Also the king and all the servants wept very bitterly. But Absalom fled, and he went to Talmai. Well, of course he went to Talmai. That's his grandpa. Remember, his mom was the daughter of Talmai. So he goes up to grandpa outside of Israel's reign. He goes to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, king of Geshur. And David mourned for his son every day. So Absalom fled, went to Geshur, and was there for 3 years. And King David longed to go to Absalom. He had been comforted concerning Amnon because he was dead. Mourning for his son every day, it appears from the context that that's talking of Absalom. And we see a parent's heart for the wayward son. And he mourns for that son every day. And we're going to see the love that David has for Absalom over the next number of chapters. And we're going to see Absalom and just the heart of Absalom. And, oh man, it's messed up. But as we look at this portion of the word, we leave here remembering this, that what we do in moderation, our children tend to do in excess. That can be good or bad. It depends what it is we're doing in moderation. If you are a moderate churchgoer, whoa, check it out. Bring your kids and watch what God might do. But don't be surprised when we say, I just watch pornography on the weekends in moderation. Don't be surprised when you say, well, my wife says I can look but not touch. Don't be surprised when your children go to an extreme. Don't be surprised. It's a strong principle that the sins of the father will be passed down to the third and fourth generation. But you can stop it. Isn't that something? We don't have to just go, just the way God made me. What can I do? My dad was crazy, so here I am. I'm crazier yet. No, stop. Stop. Switch dads. Go to your heavenly Father, man. Go to your heavenly Father. Go to your heavenly Father. Realize that not everybody who has a child is a parent. Anybody can have a child. That's a matter of biology. But a parent is a whole other ballgame. It's a whole other ballgame. How important it is for us to be born again. And have a spiritual dad, for real. Have a spiritual father. The ultimate act of love for a parent is to introduce them to their heavenly Father through Jesus Christ. My dad did that. Thank you. My mom prayed for me. Thank you. That's the ultimate gift you can give as a parent, is introduce them to a personal relationship with Jesus so they have a heavenly Father who will never leave them, never forsake them. Amen. That's the ultimate. That's what we spend our time with our kids. We introduce them to the Lord. But realize that secret little sin that we brush under the rug, that'll pop up to a greater extent in the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation. But you can stop it here today. You can stop it. We confess it as sin and we turn. And we start investing good things into our children. How do we do that? By investing them into our own life. Investing them into our own life. Walking godly. So, kind of a crazy chapter. But we're going to keep walking through it. It's going to get crazier. So hang on. It's just what it is. That's what it is. Let's learn from it here. Let's clean up today. Let's just clean up. Invest in our kids. We do something wrong, do it right. Get it right and go forward. Get blessed. We get blessed. It's a beautiful thing to say. Heavenly Father, thank you again just for time to walk through your word. Even a portion like this, Lord, where you say, oh man, This is crazy. Incestual relationships, rapes, murders, execution. This is nuts. But God, as we look at this, as we back away from the insanity and the drama of chapter 13, God, help us to learn that we have a loving Father who forgives us of our sins, who can break the curses that seem to follow families generation after generation after generation, if we just turn from our sin for the sake of our kids, for the sake of our grandkids, for the sake of our great-grandkids. Lord, for the sake of our soul, for the sake of our testimony, because of our relationship with you. So, Lord, in the quietness of this moment, we just confess our sin to you. God, we ask for forgiveness. Whether it's anger, whether it's hatred, whether it's murder, they're all the same in your eyes. Whether it's lust, whether it's adultery, it's the same in your eyes. Lord, our sin separates us from you. Our sin affects those around us. God, we're asking for forgiveness. We thank you, Lord, that you are the God of the second chance. And we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.